Please welcome a partner session with Navan.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. How we feeling? Yeah? All right. Feel like you just kind of watched the Senate testimony, watching that guy up here? All right. Moving right along. All right. Good afternoon. We're going to try and bring a little like non-Senate energy in here. We're going to talk partnerships. But it's the afternoon, and I knew that we were coming on after that squad, so we wanted to eject a little something extra. So we have two ways that we're going to start here, and I need a show of hands to go one way or the other. I can either start with a question, and we can get straight into it, or I have prepared a quote from Helen Keller and from Steve Case. Would you like the quotes, or should we jump into the question? Well, question, round of applause? No? Yeah? Oh, we don't want the Helen Keller? Okay, we'll go straight into the quote. Do you guys want the Helen Keller quote?
Helen Keller.
All right, yeah. We were supposed to get to you want the quotes is how we were going to start there. So, first off, Helen Keller, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. Isn't that a beautiful moment?
Profound.
It's very profound. Yeah. And then Steve Case, in his book, The Third Wave, said partnerships will be critical in the third wave of the internet. Really, I just wanted to find a way to open with Helen Keller. We've done that, so now we're going to move into the actual conversation. And it's about partnerships, and nobody actually wants to talk about, like, you know, the contract that Visa does with this bank or anything like that. So let's try and, you know, get a little weird with it. Recently, Michael, I believe you got married. So let's take it there. And even before you made that decision to get married, what were some of those conversations? Like, what did you take into account before you got down on one knee, and how do you correlate that to, you know, your relationship with Visa, your relationship with the partners in the world of fintech?
Yeah. So first, I want to say that I didn't procrastinate, and I read the notes and the questions a couple days ago, and I got to looking at the questions this morning. I saw you completely changed up everything and decided to ask me about my marriage and
Helen Keller was not in there 3 days ago.
Yeah. So thank you for that. It's
welcome.
A lesson to always procrastinate because it doesn't matter if you do anything early anyway. But no, in all seriousness, I actually do see the two as very, very similar. I think, you know, my wife is probably my biggest enterprise deal of my life. You know, it's taken 8 years. It was pretty interesting.
She trained you well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But really, I think it's important when you're looking for a partner, whether in business or in life. But it's about aligning the values, making sure that your values are aligned, and then complementary ways of being able to get there, right? So when I think about the partnerships with Zip or with Visa, we're all doing stuff within payments, within fintech, within helping our customers automate things and save money. And I think that none of us, like when I think about us specifically, we're building travel and expense management, and procurement is a big piece of the overall spend management, but it's not an area where I'm going to go deep or our company is going to go deep. But we all want to save companies money and time and work off their financial stack and make their lives easier. So I think that's what the best partnerships are, is aligned values and visions, but complementary ways of doing things where 1 + 1 = 3.
I love it. I just imagine you getting down on one knee and being like, will you be my enterprise deal forever?
Did you get down on one knee?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, look at the of course. That's why his shoes are dirty. Why else?
That was Burning Man.
That was Burning Man. Okay, that's a whole that's a different panel.
Yeah.
That's a very different panel. Veronica, so you, I mean, at Visa, you all have more partners than maybe, you know, anybody in the space. So you.
What are you getting at?
I mean, nothing. And also, I was trying to get away from the marriage piece because I don't know if you're married. But, you know, similar question to you. How do you think about it, and kind of what is the overlap when you're thinking about, like, relationship in the real world, human fashion to this business thing we do?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at Visa, partnerships are super important. You know, if you look at Zip and Navan as examples, we would not be where we are today, and we also, through partnerships, really think about that's how we know where the business is moving. So in other words, we have programs like our FinTech Fast Track program, which lets partners issue more quickly, roll out push to card and other capabilities more quickly. And we have Visa Ventures, which also allows us to invest in earlier stage companies. And this is that's kind of like a dating thing, right? So it's like with ventures, we can date, we can get to know them, we can build on that partnership, and it helps us to really kind of build our strategy of where's the puck going in payments, where should we be, where are we not in enough places. And we did that in things like distributed expense management and with payables. So it's really important for us.
Especially, there's one piece that you were talking about there that I want to pull on a little bit, and you kind of alluded to dating. I think one of the things about dating is, and I got out of a very long-term relationship about a year ago, and I feel like every date I go on, I learn a little something new about myself and obviously about the human race. But what is that part of the partnership strategy at Visa? Is that even you do a partnership, maybe it's the biggest, maybe it's the next Stripe, maybe it's the next Brex, maybe it's the next whatever, or maybe it's not. Yeah. But is each of those N of 1 learnings just as important as those successes, or how do you think about that?
100%. And I mean, I think I know we're a large company. I've been there for over 16 years, but I do feel like in some ways we're scrappy. We don't have, if you think about Visa and how large we are, we only have like 24,000 employees around the globe, which that sounds like a lot.
That's still a wild number, Veronica.
It does, but I mean, in
24,000 people that work under one organization, that's still a huge number. Yeah,
we move trillions of transactions, globally. If you think about every time you swipe your card, when that transaction moves around, we're a piece of all of that. But I guess my point is, I do think it's, it is important to really just start to get to know partners. And then you'll get to know the partners that, quite frankly, just want to be, are more of a vendor, right? Like really don't want you to come in and suggest, new ideas or new opportunities. And then you'll get to know partners that really want to work with you and ideate and co-create and innovate.
So basically, you figure out when to actually lean into it.
You figure out when it's a good date or a bad date.
Yeah. Okay. That's a good way to phrase it. So, Rajul, in the Zip world, I mean, we were talking backstage about how you guys have just raised a Series C, not a small company, now a unicorn, like off to the races. But Michael and I were sitting next to you and discussing the fact that you're kind of not part of this fintech. Like, you've done a good job of building an actual business, but haven't been involved in this like fintech thing where we just stand in a corner and we all talk about fintech with the fintech people. Like, you've actually gone out into the world to solve a real problem. But most people that do that don't successfully do partnerships. So how have you actually avoided I'm not going to say it. How have you avoided that groupthink? We're going to call it groupthink. And been able to do partnerships at the same time?
No, I think that's a great question. Just like when you start a company, right? It all has to originate from the customer pain, right, and the problem you're trying to solve. Because if you can't, whatever you're doing with the partner has to solve a real gap for the customer.
You don't just do it for a logo?
Yeah, exactly. Right? It's got to solve a real problem, and if it solves a real problem, then it has legs. And so you have to start with that. But sort of taking it back to the dating analogy, right? It's 1% of the effort is the first date, right? Like it's easy to say you have a partnership. 98% of the effort, it's planting a seed, right? 98% of the effort actually comes over the coming years to really make sure that every stakeholder, most importantly the customer, is actually being served.
I think can I interject?
No, of course you can.
I think that's such a great point. And I think it's one of the things that I always say differentiates a network like Visa. But it's, 99% of the work happens after the contract is signed. You don't want a partner that's going to walk away and kind of leave you high and dry, once they've cut the check. No, you want a partner that's going to stick with you, that's going to understand what's working and what's not working, and how you're going to be able to help them drive their business. So
So I just realized I was looking at Rajul's hand while he was talking. I'm the only one on stage that's not married. I just realized in the midst of this whole conversation. So I actually think there might be an opportunity for me to learn something here. Let's go there. So we talked about vendor versus partner earlier. I feel like y'all have found your partners, and I'm out here just talking to a bunch of vendors, kind of. But how do the three of you delineate the idea of a vendor versus a partner? I have this conversation. One of my day jobs is Money 2020 content stuff, and a lot of people will pitch us things that are like, we want to do this with a partner, and then I'll be like, well, what about this group instead? And they're like, that's a vendor, and I'm like, literally, that's an IDV company, and that's an IDV company. What the fuck you talking about? They're the same thing, but you've decided one's a partner and one's a vendor. What's the difference? All of you, question across the board.
Maybe I can start. So I think for us, we think about partners as people who are vital to the success of our company and our goals that we want to have moving forward. And so when we talk a lot about this build versus buy versus partner concept internally at Navan. And for us, like, we are building travel and expense software. And our partners are ones that it's completely vital in order to operate and have those types of solutions out there in the market. So when you think about, if we're issuing a bunch of credit cards, right, and corporate cards, we're partners with Stripe. We're building with them. We're partners with Visa for the network. If we want to help companies manage their entire spend, we do a lot of that management ourselves with travel and expense management, but if you think about the third leg there, it's the entire AP and procurement type of bill pay solutions, and that's exactly what we're looking with Zip to do, and that's the difference for me. It's like partners are completely vital to the success of the goals of your company. And on top of that, like, they have to be people that are completely aligned, you're meeting with regularly, they're ideating with you, and they're launching solutions in the market together, to the point where even when you're setting up these partnerships, like, there has to be incentives from compensation perspective for both sides to win. For the sales team to be motivated to go and resell this, if that's the type of partnership that you have, for the companies to be able to generate revenues from both sides. I think these types of things are really indicative of a partnership. A vendor is somebody that you sign a contract to, and 2 months before the renewal, the CSM will reach out and say, hello, how are you doing? And that's not a partner, that's a vendor, and it's okay to have vendors too, but usually vendors are ones that you have 1 or 2 backups for that you can just switch over in case something doesn't work out with the first one.
Yeah.
To echo Michael, I mean, I think for us too, our partnership with Navan is so strategic because of, it's the joint benefit, right, for a mutual customer that needs travel, expense, and procurement, versus, there's an element of, it's like very bespoke. There's an element of repeatability when you think about vendors, when you think about customers too. It's very different with a partnership because it's like a 1+1 to like many type of relationship.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing. I mean, if you think about what we want to do as Visa, it's really to just make financial services, a seamless experience, right? We talk a lot about digital and driving digital. And you look at what Zip and Navan are doing, and that's what they're doing in both, spend controls and payables and expense management. And so for us, it's additive. Like, it's kind of like, a piece of cake, I guess, because I'm hungry, but like, you put the icing on, and then you put another piece of cake on, and the icing on. And that's what makes us stronger as a network as well.
So I'm curious, like, a lot of this sounds time consuming, and like maybe that's why I'm the only, anyway. But it seems like it would be hard, right? It seems like a lot of conversations. It seems like even after you get through all these conversations, you sign the thing, and then you're telling me there's 98% of the work still to do. Yeah. So how does, especially like an early stage startup, right, that maybe one of the founders is sitting in the audience thinking about, well, I have this business right now, but I think I could unlock this opportunity if I went and had a conversation with the Visa, or someone along those lines, and unlock this opportunity. At what point do you actually start thinking about that as something that's actually worth pursuing and not a distraction? And I think that's a question to all of you, but I'm especially curious about Veronica's experience, because you've probably seen, I would imagine you've seen a lot of startups be like, I want to do something with Visa, and you're like, cool, but like, why now? And in 2 years, we will actually want to do it with you too, so shut up and do the real work for 2 years, and then we'll talk.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for me, it's like you have to do your homework a little bit, right? So it's kind of like an interview. When you go into an interview and you're like, Zach, I don't know anything about you, but yeah, hire me. I think as a fintech, that's early, you've got to come to someone like a Visa or a larger corporation that you're looking for something, you're looking for something from us. And so you've got to kind of pitch us like, what's the value for us? How is it going to differentiate us? And that's one of the things that we do on a regular basis. We talk about being the network of networks. What we bring to the table is 15,000 financial institutions, hundreds of millions of merchants, acquire processors, like those connections. And we've done this as well with Navan. And what we want to get out of it is, again, how do partners like Zip and Navan help us to be more innovative and drive a seamless experience? So I think that's very important. Yeah.
How do you two balance it? I mean, you're starting a startup within a startup. You're running a start. Like, how do you prioritize? Like, am I going to do the thing I know to do, or consider a new partnership?
I think for us, and this is, we've learned a lot of lessons along the way. Actually, funny enough, when we were just doing corporate travel, we had partnered with modern fintech companies to do spend management and to do expenses. But that was so core. I mean, 70% of expenses are in some way, shape, or form tied to a trip. It was so core for us to own more and more of the entire T&E experience ourselves to create that automation that we ended up building it ourselves. And this is a crazy thing to do internally. We already have one company. We're like investing to basically build an entire second company to do this. But like when I was thinking about, can we go build and issue cards? Like, it didn't even cross my mind to say, like, no, let's not partner with Visa, let's build our own network. That's absurd, right? So, like, of course, that's a partnership discussion and thing that you need to build. Zip's a little more nuanced, right? But in the end, like, do I think that we can build internally? We're already doing travel, we're already doing expense. Can I build the best procurement system? Do I have any right to win in that space?
No,
like,
you
absolutely not. Zip clearly, like, focused on it, attacking it like crazy, destroying the incumbents in the space. And that to me is like an obvious then partnership when you think about it. But I think a lot of tech companies today think about like their default is build. Default is build. We can do it. We can take it on. Let's do it. But really, I think it's important to look around at the space and the competition. And I mean, are we going to hire like as many employees as Bill.com and go do this whole thing? Like, no way. Like, you guys are going to do it. And so that's that kind of balance there. But yeah, I think it's important to look at that space. Yeah. We just launched Navan Connect as well, which is a partnership, big partnership, including with Visa, to basically bring any corporate card that you have and still use our modern T&E technology on top of it. And that's an interesting one because so many fintechs result on the interchange and the credit cards, and we're saying we'll give it up because we know that the customer cares a lot more about their corporate card, their banking relationship. Some customers want our cards. And this completely unlocks an entirely new segment and way more global through a partnership, and I think that that's important.
I'm really glad you're still up here, Veronica, because I don't think we'd be allowed on the fintech stage if one of us wasn't making money on interchange. So that's like,
we actually don't.
Oh, shit. That's actually an interesting dynamic. You don't. Okay, so none of us. What are we doing here? This is very confusing. Rajul, I'm wondering if you have anything to kind of like round that out or how you think about that, and also how much of it is in an outward function versus like a push or a pull for you guys. I'm curious.
As a founder, the way I look at it, your job as a founder, right, is to spend half your time harvesting fruit and half your time planting seeds, right? And if you shift that ratio too much to harvesting fruit, you're going to pay the price in 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is. And so the comment earlier about the effort that it takes, I actually would say that's your job to actually put the effort in and the time in, because it will bear fruit if you have conviction, and all parties have conviction over the coming years. As the company scales and matures, you just sort of start to think in terms of different timescales. That's all. But that split still exists.
And I think one of the pieces of advice I would have is, when you're building that partnership, oftentimes I see fintechs that have like a strategic partnerships lead, and they're talking to another strategic partnerships lead, and they're not really like socializing the entire partnership across customer service and sales, and so I think if you're coalescing behind a partnership, then it's going to be even more successful, right, versus doing it in a vacuum.
I think that's wonderful advice, and that leads me to my last question, because we're running out of time, and all three of you are married, and I'm not, so we need relationship advice to the moderator right now. One piece of advice from all three of you on the thing that makes a successful partnership. You can make it personal, make it business, whatever direction you want to go. Sounds like there's a lot of overlap, and we will start with Rajul, because Veronica just said something, so I'm going to give her a second to think.
Yeah, I think it's about relationship. I'm trying to tie both pieces here.
You just do one or the other. I mean, selfishly, I'll take the relationship advice. Really, we can go either way.
Starting with the real problem you're trying to solve. I'll let you take that in terms of the personal angle as you
There's
as
a lot
you
of
like.
problems.
But the actual problem in the market that you're trying to solve jointly.
Beautiful. Michael?
Yeah, I would say, similar to what I already said a little bit earlier, but it's basically like really understanding what are things that you can build and solve yourself, and there's advantages to that. You get to own it. You control your destiny. It's basically all in your control. And what are things that are realistically, more important to do from a partnership angle, because you don't have a right to win in that specific area or space or anything like that. So definitely a business advice, not a personal one to you.
I mean, I took it, but I guess I shouldn't now.
And I'll leave it at, like, don't get married for money. It's not just about the money.
That actually feels like really good advice on both sides across the board. Okay. All right. Thank you all. I'm going to go to therapy. I really appreciate all of this. Thank you, and thank you all.